Broadcasting live from somewhere in the Shadow Realm, this is YuGiOh Duel Links Talk. Here's your host, Doug Dimmaduel.
Hey there, welcome to another episode of YuGiOh Duel Links Talk. Today, we're going to touch on a very sensitive topic to quite a few of the listeners, and that's the ranked duels environment. I know we've done a lot of episodes in the past about this, but I feel like it's very relevant right now as we're getting closer to the launch of the KC Cup and the potential qualification for a World Championship bid. What I wanted to discuss are the difficulties involved with both trying to make a King of Games run at the beginning of a season versus making a King of Games run at the end of the season. They're both very difficult to accomplish, but in two different fronts. Some are easier than others in one way or another, and you'll find that a lot of it is, to a degree, luck-based. There are a lot of great skilled players, and they have no problem reaching King of Games. They got the best decks, they got the best skills. Those are the folks who shoot to the top real quick. But I want to kind of break things out between making a ranked duels run at the beginning of the season first. And what you tend to see at the beginning of the season, at least in my experience, once you get into Platinum, you get into Legend, when you're early on in the season, you're seeing the meta, you're seeing a lot of the same 3 to 4 decks, you know, with a few kind of thrown in there that are trying to counter that meta. But you're finding that a lot of people are seeing what is the most effective deck at that time, and you're seeing them all play that. So what that does for a player is, you know, one, it makes things difficult for the player to get to King of Games because you're going against the best decks at that point of time. But it can also be, in a way, a little bit easier to plan for, since you know you're probably more than likely going to see one of these 3 or 4 decks, and if your deck sets up counters properly, you should be able to effectively dominate those decks if you run into them and you draw the cards that you need. But again, that's more the luck aspect in there as well. But yeah, you do see a lot of the more skilled players at the beginning of the ranked season. Those who just finished King of Games in the prior season and start at, I believe it's Platinum 3 or Platinum 4. You start off there, you get into Legend rather quickly, and you move through the ranks. So those are a lot of the players that you run into, so you are going against very skilled players at the beginning of the season. But you're not seeing as much of a surprise factor at the beginning of the season because, say for example, this past season with the qualification for the KC Cup, and you saw a lot of folks trying to get in there rather early. The first week or two, all you were seeing were really Cyber Angels, Red Eye Zombies, and a few Horus decks thrown in there, and a few others. But for a majority of the time, you were seeing Cyber Angels and Red Eye Zombies. So you could pretty much anticipate one way or the other what you were going to be going up against, and more often than not, you were right. I mean, you were going against one of those decks. So if you were able to plan accordingly, you should have been able to at least kind of move through. Got some wins, but the only issue is trying to get that streak going, though, because if you're countering 1 or 2 of those decks, but you face a 3rd or a 4th one, and your counters aren't effective at all, that could end up with a quick loss. So 2 methods to do: run the meta or try and counter it, and typically grind it out enough with one of those meta decks at the time. You should be able to kind of move through, especially with those mirror matches. If you know the deck real well, you should be able to counter those out pretty nicely. So beginning of the season, that's kind of that's just kind of the vibe, and that's pretty much the experience that a lot of us have had early on in the ranked duel season. Now, as you make your way to the end of the ranked duel season, I know a lot of experienced players, a lot of experienced King of Games players, just tell all the folks who are trying to get to King of Games, just wait until the end of the season when all the good players make it up to King of Games. Then you're kind of left with, with whoever's still out there, and the competition is less skilled. You should be able to make it up to King of Games by that point. Not necessarily the case. In fact, trying to make King of Games near the end of the season has become exceedingly difficult. And the reason behind that is because you understand that when you at least hit Legend and you're trying to make that climb to King of Games, you have to win about 5 straight. Now, they do allow you the contingency for a loss thrown in there. Maybe you got to win 7 or 8 and have 1 loss in the middle, something along those lines. But typically, you want us to get 5 wins straight to rank up. Now, you only need 3 straight losses to rank down. So what the issue is that you could be running a meta deck, but you can run into so many rogue matchups that are all trying to counter your meta decks, and you really don't know what to expect when you're there. And I think that's a pretty fun part of the ranked experience right now, is the surprise factor with all these different decks. And in fact, I mean, that's one of my favorite parts about ranked right now, is that I really don't know at this point in the season what the heck I'm going to be facing. I went from some of the meta. I went from Cyber Angels to Red Eye Zombie Dragons. Those were some of the decks I was dueling against. Over to a Rex Raptor Dinosaur deck, to Weevil Burn, to Taya Burn, Taya Mill. Went on to a Joey Field of the Warriors deck I was going up against. Then somebody who had a 25 card, I don't know what kind of deck it was, but they were top decking all the right counters. It was amazing, just the variety over 10 games of the different decks that I was going up against. And I thought that was a blast. I mean, I won quite a few of those games, but also lost quite a few of those games because of just the matchups and it seemed like a lot of the luck of the draw on the opponent's side. And my goodness, this is where the issue lies within the current ranked duel structure, especially late in the season. You should not be expected to win as much as 5 straight duels against basically any crazy deck that you could find out there, many of which have the best traps and spells to counter, and a lot of the best, monster effects. So it's becoming very, very difficult to even maintain a rank up, because the second I won 5 straight, maybe I'll win 2 more, then one after the other I will have 3 perfect matchups against other players who just drew exactly the right cards, and I would brick a hand or something like that. Even with a balanced deck, I'd still find a way to brick to some degree. But it's just perfect matchups on the opponent's side. They take you out. All that work, you spend probably the entire day getting up to the next rank in Legend. You rank down within 5 minutes. That's the big turnoff right now within ranked duels, especially this point in the season. You do know that you're dealing with more skilled players, you're dealing with stronger competition, so why are you extending the win streak even longer to advance to the next stage? And I understand the prestige behind the King of Games, but when you're looking at the difficulty level involved with each of those duels, and the length of time it takes you to do each of those duels, a lot of those duels that I was going up against, because you're going against all these rogue decks, all these interesting setups, and all these neat little gimmicks, some of those duels could go about 24, 25 turns, and somebody's coming out on the losing end of that duel. 5 wins in a row after having so many duels like that could go either way and take forever. Boy, that is really going to turn players off to staying within Duel Links, or at least trying to compete for King of Games and trying to stay within Duel Links and try and spend money within the game, because this is one of the big drawbacks that I'm finding within the ranked duel structure. Until they find a way to either, when you hit Legend, to not rank back down, because I could deal with a 5 win streak as long as I don't rank back down after going up to rank 2 or rank 3, where I don't have necessarily that same type of risk as to just having an unlucky streak, maybe a disconnect, and 2 poor, rock, paper, scissors matchups that are not going to end my way. Boy, that really takes you out of the game, and I'm telling you right now, I am not spending money within this game until they fix this ranked structure, especially when you get late into the season like that. It's not conducive. It's not really going to turn players on to wanting to spend more money on new cards within the game, when it kind of leaves a bad taste in their mouth with the ranked duel structure. So this was just my off-the-cuff, thought process behind what is wrong with ranked duels right now. There's a lot right with it. I love the way that it's set up. I love everything about it. Just the streak system has got to go. Or if the streak system is staying, you should not be penalized for only 3 losses to get knocked back down when it is so prevalent for poor matchups. And I understand the grind, but and I'm reading in the subreddits, when you have folks who are getting 200, 300, 400 cumulative wins and still end up on those unlucky streaks and rank back down to Legend 1 or Legend 2, that's not how, I feel like that's not really the way that this game was intended to be played. when you have folks who can get really, really lucky, have 5 lucky matchups, 5 sets of lucky draws. Boom, you're at rank 2. You kind of stay alive, and then you go on a nice streak of 5 real lucky draws and real lucky matchups, and you hit King of Games. So, that's and that's half the fun of it too. Is you never know the luck, but this is a luck-based game. So when you have streaks, that seems something more that you would expect in a skill-based game. And now, yes, this is skill-based. I understand that, but to a degree, when you're drawing cards, you're trying to top deck what you need. Luck comes into play a lot, and luck comes into play with the matchups too. That's what I mean. It's not just luck within the game, but I mean it's luck of the rock paper scissors matchups that I was referring to earlier. So yeah, overall, there's just so many things that Konami needs to consider with Duel Links before they proceed with this next cup within other qualifying events for the World Championships, or just for people to hit King of Games in a regular season. Because boy, it is getting increasingly difficult, and it has always been difficult, but it's getting to be a different kind of difficult, and one that could be fixed pretty easily. But it seems like some of these issues are completely unnecessary and shouldn't have even been an issue in the first place, but they happen to be issues right now. So if there's anything that you want to add, I know we got a lot of listeners and a lot of friends of the podcast here who have hit King of Games and hit King of Games frequently. I know we got a ton of you guys out there, and you guys are the most skilled players that I've seen. And I got a lot of L's under my belt from some of our duels. So Milk PK, I got a lot of you guys who are getting that King of Games title, and big shout out to you guys. But anyway, if there's anything that you guys want to add, feel free to reach out to me on Twitter at YuGiOh Deck Talk. It's all one word, at YuGiOh Deck Talk, and I'd love to hear from you. Anyway, that's it for today's episode. Thanks again for tuning in, and we'll see you next time. Take care.